It was the year 1805. The Dutch colonial power was waning, and the British power was gaining in stature. And very soon they would be the third and last in a series of colonial powers that would hold sway over this island for upward of 400 years. George III was king in England, and very soon, especially after the signing of the Camden Convention in 1815, this island nation would be governed under his name as part of a British colony. Enter Sir Thomas Maitland, Lieutenant General, and he was the scion of a Scottish aristocratic family, the second son of the Earl of Lauderdale. He was 46 years old and still unmarried. He is described rather pithily by his biographer thus: a great human force controlled by a will of iron. He was a professional soldier, a member of Parliament, a Privy Councillor, and also a member of the Board of Control of the East India Company, which was a formidable trading organization of the time. Well, Sir Thomas arrived in this island as the appointed governor of His Majesty. And would you believe it? He fell in love. It was with a girl way below his station in life. The girl by name was Lavinia Aponsua, a mestizo dancer, which means of mixed parentage, Portuguese and Sinhala. Well, she must have been very beautiful, alluring, charming, striking even, exotic perhaps, to have succeeded in capturing the heart of a man who was going to be known as King Tom. So Sir Thomas began his search for a place in the country wherein he might be able to build his residence. He seemed to have favored a spot known as Galkissa. And before a year was out, and such must have been the impelling force of his passion, he had built a small but comfortable house on a rocky headland or promontory, the only elevated spot on the western coast. And it overlooked a very beautiful bay. This building has been described in this way: handsomely built, laid out in mahogany and of calamander wood, and the mansion, with its white columns, polished wooden floors, intricately carved wood ceilings, wide windows open to the sea breezes, became the trysting place for the lovers. As you can imagine, this was at a time of grave moral rectitude, and it would not have been countenanced that a governor should have a liaison with an ordinary half-breed girl, like Lavinia was. And so, perforce, this passion had to be pursued in secret. For 5 years, Lavinia flitted through a tunnel, which, as we understand, began at the bottom of a well in her garden and ended up in the wine cellar of the governor's residence. The idyll ended in 1811, when Sir Thomas Maitland had to leave Ceylon. But we do know that before his departure, he gifted Lavinia with a fair extent of land. Governors came and governors went, and in the fullness of time, Sri Lanka was relieved of British rulership with independence. And gradually, the romance resurfaced. Yes, somehow the name Lavinia metamorphosed into Lavinia. And the governor's house was referred to as Lavinia House, and gradually even the headland then became known as Mount Lavinia. After Sir Thomas, between 1812 and 1822, Sir Robert Brownrigg became the governor of Ceylon. And he is famous with having entered into that Concordat, now known as the Camden Convention, in 1815. Governor Edward Paget was the next to move in the year 1822, but his stay was rather brief, and he was soon replaced by Sir Edward Barnes, a very noble and powerful figure, and a man of great extravagance, as we understand. This was in the year 1824. He transformed Mount Lavinia, or Mount Lavinia House in particular, from being a single-storied house to a large mansion. And this was known then as Marine Villa, with good cause. It was during this period that Lieutenant Colonel William Colebrook arrived in the island to conduct what we know now as the famous Colebrook Commission. When Governor Barnes left in the year 1831, he left the mansion in desolate isolation, and it would certainly have crumbled in ruins if not for the intervention of one Reverend John McVicker, who purchased the building for the princely sum of £120 sterling. This was in the month of January of the year 1842. Now, the Reverend McVicker tried hard to restore the building and to bring back some of the grandeur of the past, but he was not able. And so no governor ever occupied that residence again. By the end of the century, the Mount Lavinia House had transformed itself from being an occasional holiday home for foreign visitors to being a wartime hospital. And then in the year 1877 became known as a hotel and was recognized as the Grand Hotel Mount Lavinia, which was the first, apparently, to introduce the concept of a nightclub. And it was also believed to have had an air-conditioned bar and was home to the first ever tour groups to visit Sri Lanka, or at the time, Ceylon. It has been known as a hotel ever since. It has changed hands many times through several illustrious businessmen until in the year 1975, Mr. U.K. Edmund acquired the property and spared no expense in restoring the grandeur of the Mount Lavinia Hotel, which we see and recognize today. Albeit with some modern aspects, it still retains the colonial charm and ambience, and certainly captures some of the mystery, the romance, and the love that was. In the year 1980, he built the beautiful Bay Wing. The hotel continues to retain a certain sense of nostalgia, even magic, and provides all sorts and every modern convenience under the careful guidance of the ownership of Mr. Sanat Ukwata, his son, and who serves as the present chairman. Special events have been planned throughout the year to make this very special for both visitors and Sri Lankans and others alike. The Mount Lavinia Hotel, always elegant, always alluring, always mysterious. A hotel that cherishes a rich history and a modern future set against the backdrop of the story of two star-crossed lovers. In the celebration of 200 years of nostalgia and a lifetime of memories to come, the hotel has modified its logo to adapt to the changing needs and modern trends as are expected by guests. Ayubowan to the Mount Lavinia Hotel, as you celebrate with us our history of 200 years in the making and a lifetime of memories to come.